Jimmy Ott Paul Stone. As we transition from football to basketball, let's get right into it. So, thinking about these traditional basketball powers turning into football powers. Indiana, huh? Well, we know about Signetti. We know about what's happening there. We know about, now that they're all in with the largest living alumni base. And hey, I don't think Indiana's going away anytime soon as long as Kurt Signetti is in Bloomington. And then we bring in the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Quietly, Freddie Hoiberg and the Nebraska Cornhuskers are 15 and 0. 15 and 0. They had a big lead, a sizable lead at Columbus against Ohio State, fell behind by 3, and Ohio State's big headed under there and just couldn't get off a solid a layup. They turned it over, turned it to a bucket for Nebraska, and that was their biggest lead. And pretty much that was their last lead of the game as Nebraska goes to Columbus and wins a road game to improve to 15 and 0. They're playing this Saturday, Paul, and it's a double barrel pick for us. Indiana, nice road win. Now Maryland's really down this year in College Park, but Indiana a slight 2-point favorite over Nebraska. It's just time for Nebraska to lose. I'm sorry, they're not going undefeated this year, but IU is also on a four-game winning streak. Lamar Wilkerson in that 4-game winning streak has scored at least 21. So 21 and more in that streak. Remember back in December 7th, we were still football, doing a lot of that at that time. He dropped 44 against Penn State. So he is a real talent. Indiana, Paul, this one might move up a little bit. I can see that where the unranked team favored over a ranked team and things like that. But 2 to be projected, I would get on it as early as possible. I think there'll be some more Indiana support at such a modest number at home against the Huskers here.
Yeah, 15 and 0. Nebraska, one of only 6 remaining undefeated teams in men's college basketball, and at a school obviously historically known for its football program. Fred Hoiberg, he has the Cornhuskers doing some special things there. Hoiberg, a guy who not only has previous collegiate head coaching experience, he also has NBA head coaching experience. So quite a resume there for Fred Hoiberg. You look at what he did last year. He led Nebraska to its first NCAA tournament appearance since 2014, and he obviously has them poised perhaps for even greater things this season. But I'm like you. I mean, you kind of took away one of my talking points, and one of my thoughts about this game is Nebraska is not going undefeated. They're not going to win every game, and it just seems like this might be the spot for its season opening run to end. And Assembly Hall is a place where Indiana has been really good, obviously, to this point in the season. The Hoosiers, 10 and 0 on the season. They're at home. They have averaged in those 10 home games 88.9 points per game, so essentially averaging 89 points a game at home. You mentioned their top scorer, 6'6" guard Lamar Wilkerson, the guy out of the state of Arkansas, extending it even a couple of more games. You mentioned, I think, his last 4 games over his last 6, 24.8 points per game, so averaging 25 a game over his last 6, really playing well. Also, Tucker DeFries, the coach's son there at Indiana, obviously another big contributor, the Hoosiers' second leading scorer. But I think Indiana's going to win this game. They're going to be an unranked team favored over a 10th-ranked team on Saturday. I think they get the job done there at Assembly Hall. Indiana projected -2 over Nebraska.
And I'm just waiting for and a couple of things. When's the last time that the best coaching job on campus, men's sports? I know that Nebraska volleyball is extremely good, but men's sports, where the clearly the basketball coaching jobs are the football. I got it flip flop. So, but anyway, Indiana. Thing about what I worry about Hoiberg. When is somebody going to try and scoop him up? And the one thing over time, it's that one March Madness win that gets you over the hump. Nebraska is the only Power 5 program to never have a win in the NCAA basketball tournament. They were one and done the last 2 years. They've made it to the tournament the last 2 years under Hoiberg. This might be the year where they break in. They're well coached, man, and this is a hell of a job, a hell of a coaching job. And I was just wondering, how long he was going to stay. I mean, because of his previous experience at different levels, people know who he is. I mean, so it's not like he's a hidden gem, kind of an obscure name out there. But man, it's just really fun to watch the Nebraska Cornhuskers play this year. So Indiana, we're going with the double barrel pick to start off with, and don't forget over at as we continue, let's go to the Big East and talking about sharp shooting. And Seton Hall 4 and 138 is the projected line against Georgetown here. How about Shaheen Holloway? He was an unbelievable player, point guard in at Seton Hall, and he's coaching at his alma mater now. And what a turnaround! They were 7-25 last year. The Pirates are 13-2 this year. So Georgetown, well, this might have gotten hidden a little bit, but playing in Chicago this week at DePaul, they had the lead at halftime. They went a smooth 1 for 23 in the second half, under 5% from the floor in the second half as they lose by 6 to the Demon Deacons the Blue Demons in Chicago. So Seton Hall now is a 4-point favorite. But, Paul, you're looking at this total here at 138. We're projecting these lines. Again, you like a little under in this one.
Yeah, I tell you, nothing too fancy here, Jimmy, but under fourth-year head coach Shaheen Holloway, Seton Hall, they've kind of been what I call a 3 yards in a cloud of dust basketball team. That's kind of the brand of play that they exhibit, meaning that they play a slower tempo game. They play a game predicated on sound defense. And looking at Ken Palm's, some of the statistical metrics that he lists, Seton Hall, they rank 272nd out of 365 Division I teams in tempo. So they play very slow pace. They're only 133rd in offensive efficiency nationally, but 9th in defensive efficiency. So it shows you that they're really a defensive oriented team. To further illustrate their style of play and their sound defense, the Pirates rank 6th nationally in points allowed per game, allowing just 62.4 points per game. And also play to kind of illustrate their tempo, they are 310th in possessions per game at 68.5 possessions. This season, Seton Hall 10-5 to the under. 5 of their last 6 games have gone under. I'm going to get out on a limb and say that under streak's going to go to 6 out of 7. I like Seton Hall and Georgetown under a projected total of 138.
All right, let's move on to the Big 12, and we're looking at Arizona and TCU. And if you saw one of the nationally televised games earlier this week, TCU had a really good one, fun game to watch in Lawrence, Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas won 104-100, and we know about the Kansas storyline this year. It's been the availability or lack thereof of Peterson. Peterson did play quote-unquote limited minutes, but scored 34 in the overtime win there. So a tough loss for Jamie Dixon and the Horned Frogs. So they come back home against the number 1 Arizona Wildcats, 15-0, and to be ranked ahead of Michigan with what they've accomplished in the margins of victories, despite, that close call in Happy Valley this week. But TCU shook up. They started off the season opener this year was against the University of New Orleans. If you're not paying attention to them, their GM is Master P. But they're improved, but they shouldn't be beating Jamie Dixon. I think they're paying Jamie Dixon a little bit more than they are the New Orleans coach down in the Crescent City. But they shook off that early loss, and they beat Florida. We talked about Michigan, how they've just these lopsided wins, especially the Gonzaga win earlier this year. They only lost to Michigan by 4 this year. So they are really competitive. And that line at Lawrence was kind of suspiciously low. So there's some respect from the odds makers here with TCU. But we're projecting 7.5 at home. Man, anytime you host a number 1 team, your fan base is going to be excited to play. TCU's got the horses to compete here. I think this is a classic case where, man, the normal home field value, the point spread is a little bit increased with this matchup when number 1 comes to town. I'm going with the Horned Frogs at home plus this projected 7.5, Paul.
Yeah, you mentioned Arizona, number 1 in the most recent AP poll. just 1 point better than Michigan in that AP poll. Michigan actually number one in the coaches poll, but they're the two best teams in the nation. I think most people would agree. They're headed to Fort Worth on Saturday to play. What I would describe as a sneaky good TCU team. This is a team that's going to make some noise in the Big 12 without question. They're off that 104 to 100 overtime loss at Kansas, and that's a game. Boy, it's got to sting. That's a game they led by 15 points with 8 minutes to go. Let it slip away. Lost in overtime. You mentioned Arizona's dominance. They haven't just been winning; they have been winning large. 12 of their 15 victories this season by 19 or more points. So this is a very impressive Arizona team to this point. But TCU, again, sneaky good in my opinion. They have neutral site victories this year over both Florida and Wisconsin. A pair of, pretty good college basketball teams. Certainly Florida a little bit better than Wisconsin this year. The Horned Frogs also, if you look back on that game in mid-November against Michigan, they played, again, the other number one team, or the co-number one team, if you want to call them that. They went down to the wire. Michigan only won 67-63 by 4 points in Fort Worth. I think Arizona is going to experience similar difficulties with the Horned Frogs. So I'm with you here. I think I love to play home underdogs in conference play, and I think TCU's a live dog here against a very good Arizona team.
Bet Rivers has given out college basketball profit boosts from 20 to 50% throughout the week for live wagers on Tuesday. Same game parlays on Wednesday and regular parlays on Thursday. See the Bet Rivers app for more details. So some of our promotions transitioning from college football to college basketball as well. Let's stay in the Big 12 and talking about those Kansas Jayhawks. They are projected to be around a 4-point favorite in Morgantown against West Virginia. We talked about Peterson. That's been the storyline. They were supposed to have limited minutes, but they needed all of his 34 to overcome that 15-point second half deficit against the TCU Horned Frogs. West Virginia this week on Tuesday, they were nip and tuck with Cincinnati, but looked to be on the ropes down late, but made the plays down the stretch to beat the Bearcats at home and win that one. So West Virginia, another conference team getting points at home, Paul.
Yeah, I heard a quote yesterday attributed to our good friend Doug Gottlieb. And Gottlieb, a guy who used to have a radio show, and now he kind of dabbles in college basketball coaching there at Green Bay. But Gottlieb, and then, whether you agree totally with this statement or not, you certainly will get the gist of it. He said there's nothing more difficult than winning a road conference game. And I think that's really true. Again, that may or may not be exactly on the mark, but it is difficult to go on the road, to travel into enemy territory in a hostile environment and get out with the W. And obviously that's what Kansas is going to be doing on Saturday, or attempting to do when they go to Morgantown. West Virginia has a first-year head coach, Ross Hodge. He comes over from the University of North Texas, where he had some really good success there as the head man of the Mean Green. Going to take him some time, I think, to build a Big 12 contender there in Morgantown, but certainly West Virginia has shown flashes to this point in the season. This is more a bet against Kansas from my perspective than a bet on West Virginia, if that makes sense. They've played 3 true road games this year, has Kansas. Lost at North Carolina by 13 in early November, and then lost by 6 this past Saturday to UCF in Big 12 play. Their only road win on a true road court at North Carolina State in overtime by just 1 point back in mid-December. I tell you, as bettors, a lot of times we just think in terms of, man, I hope we can win, and kind of think of the line in those terms. But part of a long-term winning strategy and approach is certainly mitigating your losses as well. So when I look at this game and the projected line of 4, what immediately kind of comes to the forefront of my thought process is Kansas has to win this game by at least 5 points for us to lose. So I like the fact that they have to win by at least 5, hoping to get at least 4, maybe a little bit more. But I'll take West Virginia plus a projected 4 points over Kansas in Morgantown on Saturday.
All right, let's go to, you're talking about a tough Tough way to win. And yeah, even teams that are trying to contend for their conference regular season championship, they just try and go 500 on the road and try and win, go to as close to perfect at home. But yeah, the home court advantage, and we're repeating ourselves a little bit from previous broadcasts and previous seasons, but absolutely, I don't think there's any, maybe minus the Ryder Cup until this year. But anyway, the home court advantage is really, really strong. You talk about a tough road win in the conference. Let's go to the SEC. And Bruce Pearl, Auburn had really very little tradition. And so they tried to build a new arena when Tony Barty was there, and they just in and out a revolving door. And Bruce Pearl survived, and I thought, it's always the most exciting on the ride up. It also kind of correlated with Auburn's football struggles a little bit. So that's the sport that the Auburn fan base could really get behind. And I thought turned into the toughest place to win a basketball game. The coaching, the teams, the fan base, the whole thing. It's into it. And they were on their way and I had Auburn this week, 61-45 with 13 and a half to go. Cruising along, no problem. I'm going to cover that 7.5 easily. At least I hedged or middled a percentage of my bet. But here comes Texas A&M. And Paul, I don't want to be hyperbolic here, but this is one of the hottest shooting stretches I could ever remember. In 6 minutes, 6:20, six minutes, they turned a 16-point deficit into an 11-point lead, a 27-point run. So they scored 33 points, and it started with a little layup to cut it to 14, just under 13 minutes to go. Steal, three. Steal, three. I mean, it's an 8-point play in 30 seconds to start that thing. And it just triggered something. It's a cool thing about basketball. When a shooter gets hot, you better recognize it. Because in Texas A&M, it wasn't like they were working. They were letting fly the first ball they could get off, and it was dropping one after another. It was unbelievable. Then you go to the end of the game where A&M comes back, some crazy stuff at the end, and a half-court shot down 2, was so close. How close was it? The SEC network was afraid to show it themselves, but the light on the glass, just as it was still on the shooter's hand, goes red. But the clock in the bottom was still .01, and it had been released. So, to say the least, 2 young coaches as well. It created a lot of confusion, a lot of unrest. And the SEC, the head coach, the new coach for Texas A&M, he was doing an interview with the Bucky McMillan with the SEC studio, and they're like, Coach, get to your locker room and get where it's a little safer. You got to get away from that mob right now. My point is, it's not sustainable, and on both ends. And we'll get to Texas A&M a little bit earlier. What is sustainable for the Arkansas Razorbacks? Just in, John Calipari has brought in a talented freshman. Darius Acuff Jr. is the real deal. He is scoring over 20 a game. Averaging 20 a game for the season, but just real since conference play started this week, he's been on fire and just very impressive. A nice win against Tennessee, comfortable win against Tennessee. Those are hard to come by against Rick Barnes. And then they go on the road and take care of business as well at Ole Miss. Auburn -1.5 here, kind of rallying the troops a little bit. An 0-2 start. I know Bruce Pearl is gone, but still, it's a proud program. And they still have Tahad Pettiford, who is their only player from last year's Final Four team. So just an unbelievable that between. Let's just say A&M was a little hotter from the floor in the second half than Georgetown was on Tuesday night. It was unbelievable. I can't get over it. But we talk about things that aren't sustainable a lot of times. And I think Auburn is going to come back because for 34 minutes, they were much the best in this game on Tuesday night, and it just didn't. At home, desperate team, projecting to be a very slight favorite at 1.5. I'm worried about this Arkansas team. I think they are. I think Calipari's got a pretty good roster, and he's got a guy he can go to down the stretch in Acuff Jr. But I'm going with Auburn -1.5 here.
Yeah, I like your basic approach here. I mean, like you mentioned, you've got an Arkansas team that's off to a 2-0 start in SEC play. Then on the flip side, you've got an Auburn team that now's 0-2 in SEC play. So they would certainly figure to be the more desperate team playing with a greater sense of urgency. So, all things being equal, you would expect Auburn to come out with one of those premium efforts with their back, firmly against the wall. And you laid it all out and mentioned it. I mean, Auburn could have won either or both, obviously, of their first two SEC contests. They lost by 4, 104 to 100 at Georgia, and then they blew the 16-point second half lead against Texas A&M, as you mentioned. So, it's just a situation where you're taking the team that needs it more. I mean, Auburn, if they lose this game, they go to 0-3 in SEC play. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to quit or their season's over, but it could certainly go off the rails quickly. So this is a must win or a need to win situation is probably a better way to put it for Auburn. And I like your position there. If Auburn's going to, hit a home run this year and have a big time Saturday game, this is going to be it at home.
All right, let's go to Conference USA. And Paul, this is one of your picks here, and it's on that theme as far as the desperate team here because we're looking at Sam Houston 8-6 against Liberty 11-3, but their conference records, Sam Houston is winless 0-3, Liberty is 3-0, and Sam Houston's at home as a 1-point favorite here.
Yeah, Liberty was the near unanimous choice to repeat as Conference USA champions in the preseason media poll, or I think it's preseason coaches poll, actually, who voted on it. They earned 11 of the possible 12 votes. So Liberty certainly the team that most expect to win Conference USA. And as you mentioned, they're off to that 3-0 start, facing a somewhat desperate Sam Houston State team. As you also mentioned, off to an 0-3 start. But Sam Houston, all of their first 3 conference games, all on the road. So a little bit of an unbalanced start to their conference schedule, if you will. The Bearcats, they do host Delaware tonight. We're doing this video on Thursday, January 8th. So they're playing Delaware tonight at home. So they could be off the schneid when they face Liberty on Saturday. But this is not a large sample size, perhaps, but Sam Houston's better at home. Like a lot of teams, they're better at home, and they're 4-0 this year. They're in Huntsville, Texas. And one of those victories, the one that really stands out to me, is an 8-point home win over a pretty good Wyoming team out of the Mountain West Conference. And this is a Wyoming team that beat UNLV earlier this week by 32 points. And then they only lost at Texas Tech back in mid-November there in Lubbock by 4. So Wyoming's a pretty good basketball team. Sam Houston beat them by 8 in Huntsville. I think they're going to beat Liberty as well. Sam Houston, much like Auburn, they're a desperate team. I like Sam Houston minus the projected 1 point over Conference USA leading Liberty.
So we talked about that Auburn A&M game. We gave you one side of it as Auburn bouncing back, and I've got the same type of angle here for A&M. And it goes a little bit deeper here besides A&M not being able to sustain that torrid 6-minute stretch in the second half in Auburn. But it also goes to their season opener as well, where they barely squeaked by an LSU team who was without their starting point guard. I want to bring that up. Starting point guard D-Dan Thomas, a transfer from UNLV, led the SEC in assists, including their biggest win this year, 12 assists and 2 turnovers against SMU, who's a top 25 NAT team. So they barely get by there. They go crazy and above, their normal shooting in Auburn. Now Oklahoma comes to town. We're projecting this line to be 4.5. Now, the Aggie fans will be excited, so they'll get behind, playing Oklahoma. A&M's 12-3 on the year, 2-0 in the league. Oklahoma 11-4, 1-1, and Wednesday night got bruised up pretty good at the hump in Starkville, Mississippi against Mississippi State, a close game that was broken up into, got out of hand as Oklahoma lost pretty bad in Starkville. To all due respect, Bucky McMillan, the first-year coach out of Sanford with Texas A&M, nice start, but I just don't think this A&M team is that good. I'll take Porter Moser on the sideline on the bench for the Oklahoma Sooners, catching 4.5. I think they got a real shot of winning this game outright as well. So I'm taking the Oklahoma Sooners plus the projected 4.5 in College Station.
Yeah, you mentioned A&M's 2-0 start in SEC play. They survived LSU 75-72 there in College Station. And then we've talked pretty extensively about the upset victory at Auburn earlier this week, 90-88. And also the Aggies, I'll add this, the Aggies got some bad news recently when it was announced that their 6'9" forward, Mackenzie Mabaka, he would miss the remainder of the season due to a foot injury. Mabaka is a big part of their success to this point. 10 points a game, 5 rebounds, a solid defender. His absence will certainly be felt there. You mentioned Oklahoma's game on Wednesday night, the loss at Mississippi State by 19 points. You would expect a bounce-back effort from the Sooners here. So will be interesting to watch this game. And Oklahoma definitely needs a win in College Station on Saturday.
All right. So now that we've transitioned one more week of college football, of course, we preview the national championship game early next week. And then at the end of the week, the latter part of the week, we'll be talking some more college basketball. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott here in the College Sports Rush YouTube channel, brought to you by our friends at Bet Rivers.